Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the podcast. Paul and I were chatting the other day, and we were just saying that we're in a pretty lucky position in so much as we've got an amazing kind of little black book of people that we know. And indeed, quite a lot of those people have been on this podcast over the last few weeks. Colin Gregor, Mandy Hickson, Kath Bishop, Vanessa Ruck, Phil from the school's sort of sports background education, Katie Ford, and we were just we were sort of sitting down and throwing a bit around, and we thought this week we might actually do just a little bit of reflection. Paul and I are pretty big on debriefs, whether you win or lose, and we thought it'd be quite fun to sort of sit down and say, where is the commonality? Although the stories are really, really different. Obviously, everything from Vanessa being knocked off her bicycle to Mandy flying fast jets to Katie being a vet and Colin playing international rugby. The stories are all really, really different, but actually, where's the commonality and what's this kind of toolkit that we like to talk about to come out of that? So, Paul, we thought we'd reflect it, and we thought that's where we'd sort of start.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think from most of what we talk about when we're talking about how to get better as a leader, how to do leadership training, the most important thing I think that you can do if you want to get better at leadership is be self-reflective. You can read all the books, you can watch all the Simon Sinek videos, you can get all the theory.
I think I have.
Yeah, I think we have. Yeah, but you've got to go and do it, mess it up, and then the most important thing is sit back down and go. In reflection, when I did that, the team did this. Would I do that in future? Yes or no? And so it's the power of that self-reflection is where you get to be a little bit better. And yeah, you're right. Some of the people we've had on over the last few weeks. Mandy Hickson and her fast jets, Ed Drake skiing, Katie Ford, a vet, and now talking about imposter syndrome. For me, the thing that really sprung out and leapt out as all of these people, fantastic stories, but none of them are where they perhaps planned to be 20 years ago, when
Yeah.
they probably sat down and went, what's my plan? What's my career? What's my trajectory? Where do I want to be in 20 years' time? I would almost guarantee that none of them are where they planned to be. They're probably all very happy where they are, but that none of them got to where they planned to be. Stuff happened. Life got in the way.
And in fact, I think Phil echoed that, didn't he, from a schools and education perspective, that right now the kids are perhaps a bit anxious because that kind of set pathway isn't what they think it's going to be. But actually, in reality, all of those people that I certainly would describe as fairly inspirational, kind of none of them had a set pathway in many respects. I know we like to talk about toolkits, don't we? And I think for me, one of the things you've drawn out of this is that actually there's two or three kind of key factors I think everybody shares in common. And we like to put that into a toolkit. And I sort of say to people that you can learn the tools as early as possible, but the more experienced you become, the more reflective you become, good and bad, you just kind of learn to use the tool. I've got this kind of sort of B&Q theory, Paul. Yeah, I know you kind of like a little bit of woodwork, but that's a discussion for another day. But actually, you go into B&Q, you want to put a shelf up. You know that you're kind of going to need a drill, but you walk in and there's drills everywhere and shelves everywhere, and you can't know what's going on. And the helpful assistant comes over, dressed in orange usually, and sort of points you in the right direction of the right drill and the right kit for the job. And I think I like to see what we do is a little bit like that. It's kind of, we collect all these experiences and all this stuff from all these different places, different sectors, different backgrounds, put them all into a toolkit, and then kind of work out where to take them out.
And yeah, Tim, what you were saying there about the toolkit, one of the really important tools I think you can have is to do a bit of planning, work out what's going on. Now, everyone we spoke to, their plans have fallen apart. They've gone wrong. Stuff that they planned out, it didn't quite come to fruition. But it's perhaps not the plan that's the important bit. It's the fact that you've done the planning in the first place, when you were calm, when you were relaxed, and coming up with options. What happens if, that sort of stuff. There's a great quote from old Dwight Eisenhower, Allied commander on D-Day, that plans are completely worthless, but planning is everything. And so actually it's the process of working out what should I do if that happens. Thinking it through is fantastically really very important when you're calm, because you can come up with what to do when this happens and when that happens. Actually having the plan at the end is fairly pointless, because that will probably fall apart at some stage.
Yeah, and I'll never forget. I think I've said to you before. It's quite funny when we were doing sort of somewhat specialist military training, shall we say, and we were practicing for driving about the place, perhaps somewhere we shouldn't be, or not wanting to be obvious as the military, and we would obviously then practice for what went wrong, and the kind of sexy drills were the car drills, shoot out the windscreen with the MP5 and come out with the guns blazing, etc.
Mhm.
But then I always remember that every once in a while we'd be sort of going through this drill, and the instructors would go, "Right, you've got a puncture." We'd go, "Sorry, what?" Like, "Yeah, you've got a puncture, or your car's broken down," and we'd be like, "Oh," because we were, sort of planning and preparing for some, sort of super complicated, extraction. And in fact, it was pointed out to us, take care of the details, take care of the basics, practice them when you're not under pressure, understand what you're going to do when all of that goes wrong, and then actually, should it actually go wrong for real, you've got something to sort of pull out of the bag, and you to pull out of that, that little toolkit and use it.
I want to see that in the next James Bond film with him side of the road, getting the jack up, putting the tyre on. Oh my God, what happened here? Pothole.
Yeah, well, I mean, if I was James Bond, I'd be feeling much safer now because, of course, the Aston Martin's got a Mercedes-Benz engine in it, so it'll actually work. I mean, the reality is James Bond will be dead in about the third movie because he would jump in, put the key in, and it wouldn't start.
Ooh.
So, I mean, that'd be the end of that, wouldn't it?
Oh, we'll have haters now, but yes.
Harsh, but essentially fair. What about common themes then, Paul? When you come back, I mean, I think for me, we always talk about resilience, particularly being kind of two key aspects, don't we? We talk about either continuing through or being able to pick yourself back up again. And actually, all of the people we've spoken to in the last few weeks have definitely sort of done that. And I think you always, you quite regularly say words to the effect of, an overnight success takes 10 years to build. And actually, whether that was Mandy almost failing flight school, whether that was Kath, sort of struggling to find out what her kind of identity was all about and what success looked like for her. And, I think all of those people, and Ed just fighting to even get to the start line of the Olympics, then I think that's a really common theme, isn't it? Of all the kind of inspirational, successful people that we've met is you're going to get knocked over. So therefore you've got to develop some sort of strategy to be able to pick yourself back up again.
And it's the first time you fail is the hardest, because you haven't built that resilience. You're not used to it. It's not something you're used to doing. As you go through life and you fail more and more often,
I'm really good at
it. A bit like us. It becomes more. You're like, okay, it's not the end of the world. I know I'll recover from this. I know I'll get over this. But the first time or the second time that happens to you, it really hurts because no one trains us how to fail. Everyone trains, it's all about success. And certainly Phil, when we were talking about the kids at school and this last year, that really brought it to me. I was like, wow, yes, thinking back to what would have happened if I couldn't take my A levels, and I then think that absolutely everything's fallen apart. If I haven't built up resilience, it's that how you talk about resilience, Tim. I know there's lots and lots of different ways of thinking about resilience and lots of different ways on the internet of people talking about resilience.
Yeah, I mean, for me, actually, you become resilient. You are not born resilient. You don't go on the course and come away 2 days later resilient. I think it is something you reflect upon almost and go, wow. And I think it's something that the sort of very successful people all have in common. For me, the key element to that is we talk about setting expectation, don't you? And I've spoken about Everest in the past. It's not realistic to put yourself through any sort of long learning process, training process, competitive process, climbing process, doesn't matter what it is, and not have a bad day. It's just you are setting yourself up for fail. If you think that you're going to go through that without doubting yourself, without questioning yourself, you set yourself up for a bit of a fail. And I know all the challenges you and I have done together, we've always been very open about the fact that at some point one of us is going to hate this for a minute or two, and we kind of need to verbalize that.
But often in this world, we only put our successes on the internet. We only stick the amazing summit picture on Instagram. We don't put the two
Paul clinging to the side of a mountain.
Yeah, we don't put me shaking with fear hanging onto the side of the mountain. We don't do that, and so we do still stick out there an idealized or a filtered image of ourselves.
But I think one of the best examples that's never spoken about in terms of failure being a success and lauded is one of the challenges we haven't mentioned, which was, we haven't spoken about the Cresta Run. And, we all went to the Cresta Run for the day, you, me and David and Willa, a friend of ours. We all went to the Cresta Run and we all went for it. And of course, Dave and I, being the kind of ex-racing drivers, we were totally ignored all of the instructions, despite the fact that every third sentence was, you'll die. And kind of went for it and smashed about everywhere. And you were like teacher's pet as per usual, and worked it all out. And in fact, by far and away, ended up quicker than any of us. But in actual fact, of course, Dave and I all successfully crashed out at Shuttlecock, which means that we now both proudly walk around with our Shuttlecock tyres on. And actually, you as a winner got nothing.
Well, I suppose that is you've got a tie to celebrate your failure. So well done. Yeah. That was terrifying. That was amazing. For everyone who doesn't know, the Cresta Run is a silly British tradition in the Swiss Alps. It's skeleton. It's head first on a silly tray down an ice track at silly speeds. So we've turned up there. I was expecting Tim and Dave to be fantastic because they both have raced professionally cars, so they know angles and apexes and all this sort of stuff. And I just very, very quietly just listened and went, okay, and just went down and practiced and got faster and faster, laughing at this lot exploding out of this corner and exploding out of that corner, covered in bruises, all messed up. I was like, guys, you just listen to the teacher, listen to the expert.
All I remember thinking is how heavy that I'm going to call it. I didn't even call it. It was a toboggan. Was it 40 kilos or something? I just remember saying, when you crash, not if you crash, get off it. You don't want to be anywhere near it when you come off it. And all I remember is flying out at Shuttlecock thinking, get off. This thing is going to hurt me. Get off it. I think one of the things I've learned as well is that the theme that we've spoken about is actually fairly consistent. So it almost doesn't matter what sector you work in, whether you're a vet, an accountant, a lawyer, an aerospace engineer, whether you're a professional salesperson, it kind of doesn't matter. You can learn some of the best lessons from the people that have done those particular skills rather than, necessarily worked in your specific sector. I've always found it quite interesting that a lot of companies, they say to themselves, right, we need to find a trainer or a coach. What we'll do is we'll find somebody that did this job 15 years ago, then set up on their own, haven't really moved on since, and we'll just do it the way we've always done it, only we'll listen to somebody else now again. And it's sort of fairly punchy. Whereas one of the things that I've learned from these podcasts, talking to everybody, is that actually we can all learn so much from people that have been through those experiences, whether that's Vanessa realizing that she can't differentiate between physical and mental health, and all of that will add up towards towards rehab. Whether that's Ed having to learn how to present and speak in public because no one's going to get him to the Olympics otherwise. I don't know. I just think it's interesting that we can perhaps learn more lessons when we look left and right of whatever it is we actually do for a living.
Yeah, we can get a bit too focused. It's nice to every now and again do that little meerkat moment where we sort of pop our heads up out of our bubble or out of our profession or our trade and just look around and go, what else is the world doing? Are other people doing different things? Are other sectors doing things that I can steal? I mean, that's all a consultant is, isn't it? That they go to one place, they steal all the ideas, go to another place and sell all the ideas to them. And so just
we're not telling me you don't walk around IKEA and B&Q and then design your desk. Of course you do.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it's worth just seeing, as we've always said, professional sports, mountaineering, the military, business, there are so many crossover bits and pieces that we can sort of share and learn from each other, because we're all doing very similar skills, but just in very different environments.
I think when we talk about collaboration, I find that quite interesting. Again, we seem to adapt this sort of linear process-driven approach to everything, and I think collaboration is arguably the same. I literally sort of sit in meetings now and people go, right, let's collaborate, okay, who with them for what reason? We're always saying, like, understand your in order to, what's your why? And for me, I like to strip that problem apart. And as you well know, the sort of challenges that we take on, and I'm doing exactly the same thing with the Dakar now, strip that project apart and say, right, what skills am I missing? What intelligence am I missing? What knowledge am I missing to be able to try and put this all together? And that's going to be where I'm going to start to collaborate, and I'm going to try and fill those gaps. So rather than collaborate with a kind of, hey, look at me, I'm brilliant, you come and do the same as me, I'm going to go, well, actually, I know nothing about this, I know nothing about that, or I need to know more about this. And that's where I'm going to go and collaborate. And actually, using Dakar as an example, but the responses I've had have been brilliant. I phone people up and say, look, I really want to do this crazy thing. I don't know anything about it. I think you're a bit of an expert in this field. Would you mind sharing with me? And actually, my experience has been most people are super keen to share their experience and share their thoughts with you.
Yeah, never be the cleverest in the team. It's all gone wrong if you have. You want to be sucking in experts from left, right, and centre. Yeah.
Well, I've always done that. I mean, thankfully, I'm not the expert on any of the teams we've ever been on. But
yeah, harder for some than others too. Excellent.
So I just thought that was, I just thought it was a useful reflection to take out the themes, Paul, wasn't it, over some of the people that we've had on the podcast so far, and for me, it's that ability to get back up again, to look at small goals, to understand the why and the in order to kind of keep moving forward, and actually use all of this to build a bit of a toolkit. And I think that's the theme for me that has kind of presented itself, because we had no real agenda when we put this together. I don't know about how for you.
Yeah, just building that experience. Learning from when you get knocked down, right, get back up again. And every single person that we've spoken to has got awesome stories. But like we said at the beginning of the podcast, they've all ended up somewhere different to where they started out. And probably it was the journey that helped them get there. The little knockbacks, the little failures, learning how to cope with it, learning some more skills from different people, keeping going, just even when they wanted to quit, just another one more step on another one more step. Exactly.
Perfect. Guys, thank you very much for listening again. That's a little bit of a reflection as to where we've got so far. We'll be probably back to our sort of slightly more normal format next week. And the plan is to invite one of our ambassadors, actually, Chantal Cummings, who is the kind of living embodiment of resilience, really. She's an elite Ironman triathlete. We've been involved with Chantal for quite some time now. And she certainly has some top tips on kind of building resilience and keeping focus. So we look forward to talking to Chantal. Thank you very much, guys.